And actually we're going to stand and we're going to say the pledge. So please rise. The flag is back there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I see a lot of new faces, see a lot of familiar faces. We're glad you're here. I'm sorry? Yes. I'll just turn my volume on. Make sure that every meeting you come, you sign in. That's how we know we can distribute our meeting schedule, events. It helps us keep you in the loop. We have a raffle tonight. Don't let me forget, because I always forget, but you guys remember you have those tickets, and I have a little raffle. We have some really important business to take care of, and I want to get started right away. Jessica is live streaming our meeting. Just so you know, if you're not able to attend a meeting in the future, you want to be here, but you can't make it, we do have a phone bridge that you can call in. Is it working? Perfect. So there's a number on your agenda. And when we send out the meeting reminders through our email blast, you'll have that attached as well. You can always call in, listen in. There's also, if you have a question, you can just yell, hey, and we'll try to answer your question for you. That's helpful. And then if you weren't able to attend and you want to be able to play it back, there is a link that's always posted on our Facebook page. And Jessica, is it also posted on our website? Mm-hmm. Okay. So Broward ESE advisory.org, you'll find the link there to go back and retrieve. There's actually been some really good information throughout the year. So if you're new and you want to just take a peek back, there might be some topics covered that would be of interest to you or helpful. So be sure to take a look at that. We also have our Facebook page, Broward ESE Advisory on Facebook. So you can find us there. Our subcommittees, we have an autism subcommittee, ACE. We have a Down syndrome subcommittee. And we have a specific learning disability subcommittee. So they all have Facebook pages as well and links on our website. So it's helpful to find meeting schedules. Whenever in doubt, just go to those sources and you can usually find at least somebody who can point you in the right direction. This evening, we are going to go over extended school year services. We're going to have some updates on the student education policies and procedures. And then we're going to take care of a lot of our business, which is we have to approve bylaws, and we'll get more into that. Our nomination committee has an update to share with you for our slate and just some other news. So without further ado, I would really like to, first, let me just tell you, introduce some people in the room so you get a feel for who's here. My name is Kelly Thomerson. I'm the chair of ESE Advisory. Vice Chair, Dr. Esai Aim. Our corresponding secretary is Jessica Kreco. Our recording secretary is Jackie Luscombe. Our executive board members are Linda Adderley-Old over here, Bach Tadero, where is she? Sneaking back in the door, and Becky Schwartz is Becky. Becky's right over here. So they've been kind of like our steering committee working to help facilitate everything. Any of our subcommittee chairs and vice chairs, Bach is here representing DS. Nordine is here. She's the chair of our SLD committee, our specific learning disability committee. And Wendy Carroll is here. She's on the board. What is your position, Wendy? She's the recording secretary. That's a big one. So for the ACE, the autism committee. So there's a lot of people. You just kind of feel for who's in the room. But as we go through the evening, if you have any questions, make sure you jot them down. There are also some forms on your tables. If you have a specific concern for something personal to you, you can certainly fill that out and we can give them to district staff, who I'm going to introduce you to as well. But then if you have a systemic concern, that might be something that's more broad in general. At the end of our meeting, we'll have an opportunity to discuss those concerns and see if we can help you through some solutions, or at least put them on our radar of things that, because a lot of times when you have something that's in your mind, somebody else in the room does too. So don't feel shy. But if you are shy at first, just write it down. There's index cards there too, and you can pass those to me. Our executive director for ESE is in the room tonight. It's Dr. Hickman. He's sitting over here. Sonia Clay is right over here. She's one of our executive directors. And then Mary Claire Musenik is also here for student support services. Felicia Stark is here from, help me out, why can't I think? Due process. And Brian Norris, what is your specific title?
I'm the supervisor, district supervisor for the department and also oversee ESY.
Perfect. So that's why he's here tonight. And I'm going to welcome him up here first because his daughter is here with us tonight, Peyton. It was so nice of her to take a little time out of her night. She's got testing tomorrow, so we got to get her home so she can get a good night's sleep. So we're going to let Brian share about ESY with us. Thank you so much.
Well, good evening, and thanks to Kelly for inviting me to come out. I wanted to start the evening with telling you I came a couple years ago and was able to present to the parent advisory group about ESY, and I know there's definitely some feedback about how we make kids eligible. So I wanted to let you know in the 4 years that I've been able to oversee the ESY program, we've gone from right around 1,800 kids that were eligible my first year to we just had our projections meeting last week, and I'd like to thank district staff that assisted with that at our schools. We are now over 3,000 kids that are eligible for ESY services for the summer of 16. So we've definitely seen a huge increase, and that's a credit, I think, to Mrs. Stark and her training with the ESE specialists at the schools, but also to make sure the kids get the proper services that they need. Here's the timeline. When ESY decisions are made, all kids show some sort of regression over the summer months or the summer weeks as they go by. Statistics show that. But what we look at when we decide whether or not ESY or kids are eligible for ESY, we wait till after the first quarter, because normally within the first quarter of school, most schools or most classes are going through remediation or they're reviewing what was covered their previous school year. So after the first quarter, we really ask schools to start collecting data to see what students may be showing that regression or recoupment to see if they would be eligible for ESY services in the coming summer. So those decisions are made by the IEP teams at all the schools. I get so many calls over the summer or leading into ESY when parents want their students to be eligible. And unfortunately, it's not a magic wand that I can wave and say, yes, your son or daughter can go, or no, they cannot. It is based on an IEP team decision, which the parent is part of that committee, and the schools provide data to show whether or not the students are showing the progress or not to attend ESY. All letters have gone home to parents, so any student that was made eligible, those letters would have gone home and they were due back to your school by April 1st. Any type of transportation needs, we have a phenomenal young lady within our division named Maria Jewell, who is going on maternity leave, so it's going to be a loss to us when she does do that. But all of the transportation requests have been put in, so we have really done a great job over the last couple of years making sure that transportation concerns and needs are taken care of prior to the summer program starting in June. Student information for ESY has already been turned in. We had our planning meetings last Wednesday and Thursday. ESE specialists from the schools that are sending kids went to the ESY sites. They dropped off the folders and all of the forms that are necessary for the students to attend. So those projection meetings have already taken place. And the schools always submit work packets for us because remember, ESY is extended school year. So the schools provide us with the work or with the materials that are needed to make sure that the IEP goals are covered during the summer weeks to make sure that they show progress and or there's not that regression recoupment that we're trying to avoid during the summer. This is the emergency contact sheet, and it's very important that we stress to parents, and we stress this with our ESE specialists, that this information is accurate, because remember, ESY is based on the student's home boundary school and what ESY site they will attend. So when these students go to ESY, number one, for the most part, they will not know the site. And number two, they may not know any familiar faces that are at the site. So it's very important that if for any reason there's an emergency or the school is in need of getting in touch with the parent, that we have as accurate as up-to-date information as possible. So this is something we always try to stress, because I know we can always default to terms, or there are means to do that, but we have a lot of movement in the summer times. Parents move, things happen. So we try to stress and make sure we have as accurate information on the parents as possible. Here's what the purpose of ESY is to prevent the significant regression on their IEP goals. And I think that's the one thing that needs to be stressed. A lot of times parents call me or are concerned because they want that opportunity for their kids to attend ESY, but the goals that they may have in their IEP, there is not that regression that's shown during the school year, and the school doesn't have the data to support it. I think most parents would like their kids to go because it is 4 hours a day where their kids are supervised, but we really look at the data when ESY decisions are made, and that's why it's crucial that the IEP teams meet and that the parent is a crucial part, an integral part of that process. We want to make sure the students maintain momentum when a student is at the crucial stage of learning a critical life skill. We want to ensure that the student is benefiting from their educational program when the nature and severity of his or her disability is considered. And we also ensure that the student is receiving FAPE when extenuating circumstances occur. So our program, we really feel, I think over the years has definitely improved, definitely with the numbers, but also with the fidelity that we do within the process. I think one of the best compliments that I've received since I've oversaw ESY was last summer. Mrs. Clay came to a meeting and said, you know, my daughter is working at an ESY site. And at the time, I didn't even know her daughter was a teacher within the district, and really said that the materials that the school had sent and the program altogether, her daughter was thoroughly impressed with. So I quickly got her daughter's address, wrote her a thank you card, and threw a $50 gift card in it, mailed it to her house. I didn't get a response, so I don't know if Sonia intercepted that, but that was probably the best compliment I could have got, and I really appreciate your daughter doing that. So please let me know if she got that card. Decisions about ESY and how they're made, the IEP team looks at data, which I already stressed, that is collected on the student's IEP goals to determine if the student is in need of the extended school year program. And the services for any one or more of the 4 purposes outlined by the Florida Department of Education, and there must be data to support that team's decision. So when you go to that ESY determination meeting, there are 4 categories that the school or the team looks at to see if the student is eligible for services, and those are the real opportunities for parents to express their concerns, schools to discuss what concerns they may have, and or a lot of times there is no need for ESY, but data is always an important part of it. And data isn't just the grades. I think one of the aha moments I had once I got to the district was when I was school-based. A lot of times teachers would come to IEP meetings with just grades, and they thought that that was sufficient data. But, you know, there is tons of data that teachers collect that should be presented at all the meetings. And ESY is just one of those where they're collecting that data from the beginning of the school year to decide whether or not this is a program that the students are eligible for. And here are how the decisions are not based. The student has gone to ESY in the past. That's definitely not something that is a real indicator of whether or not they need it. Obviously, with all of our students, the goal would be to, you know, hopefully have them exit the program at some point if their disability or deficit is able to be, you know, met or got back to the average range where they need to be. You know, that is something that we don't take into consideration if they've gone in the past. We have to look at accurate and up-to-date data to see if the need is still there. If the student is that type of student who typically attends ESY, I think that's one of the real things that we've done over the years to correct it. A lot of times in the past, we've told parents, you know, your student is not the type of kid that needs to attend ESY. I think when I looked at the numbers today, we had over 900 students who are in some sort of learning strategies at the secondary level, where they are gen ed kids going for a regular diploma, but they have reading or math goals that potentially they need continuous work on. So those are classes that we've added the last couple of years to assist those kids to make sure they don't have that regression over the summer months. And once again, a particular team member wants or does not want for the student to go. If the school is adamant and or if the parent just says, I want my kid to go, we always go back to the data to make sure those decisions are made properly. The dates for ESY, we have a program that's up to 4 weeks. Now remember, ESY is individualized, so some students may go for 1 week, some students may go for 2 weeks, or up to 4 weeks. And that 4-week program is July 5th through July the 28th. Our summer programs all run Monday through Thursday, but the week of July 4th is a holiday for the district, and that falls on a Monday this year. So the week of July 4th, the program will run Tuesday through Friday. For students that are receiving up to 6 weeks, because once again, it is individualized, so a kid can go for 5 weeks or up to 6. The dates are June 27th through August 4th of 2016. And we're open for 4 hours a day, 4 days a week. It used to be traditionally that all ESY sites ran from 8 to 12. Over the last couple of years, with all of our summer programs running, transportation has asked that we kind of stagger some of those bell times. So some of the secondary sites don't start till 9:30. So they would run from 9:30 to 1:30. Most of our elementaries go from 8 in the morning until 12 o'clock. And the amount of time and the number of days per week your child will attend is determined by the IEP committee. on his or her IEP, because once again, it is an individualized program. ESY sites are definitely determined by the Office of School Performance and Accountability. Ever since the bond passed last year, a lot of schools are slated for construction. So I used to have some say-so on where our summer programs run. They do consult me because it is very important that we choose elementary schools that hopefully have some sort of cluster program to make sure they at least have the classroom and materials for that, and also pre-K programs, because we do have a large amount of pre-K students who are eligible to go to ESY. So they do consult me, and I'm eligible to give, or I'm able to give my feedback, but ultimately it, defaults to what type of construction is going on in the summer, and they never want to, overwhelm a school and have ESY in 2 or 3 consecutive years at the same site. And then students assigned to a different school during the school year due to McKay or reassignment, they will attend, or go to a special program, they will attend the ESY site that it feeds into their home boundary school. So we have a lot of schools or a lot of students that may attend one of our cluster programs, but we offer all services at all of our ESY sites during the summer, so it does default back to where their home boundary school is, and then where they would funnel into based on that feeder pattern. And I'm sure no one can read this. This is the feeder pattern for the schools for 2016, but we do have on the Broward Schools website, I believe on the splash page, there is now a summer programs link. And within that summer programs link, there is an ESY link to that with my information, the feeder patterns, and some information about the summer program. So that's basically it. So I will open it up to questions, and I see Ivan eagerly trying to raise his hand as he chooses cookie. Yes, sir. How you doing, Ivan?
A quick question, because I was out of the loop with ESY for a couple of years. I think that changed dramatically. Question one is, how many schools did you say are the sites this year?
We have, well, let's do the math together. We have 4 sites in the south, 4 in the north, and 5 in the central. So that is 13. And then we have secondary sites in each. So that's 16 in each area. So that's 16. And then we have the Quest, Bright Horizons, Whispering Pines, Cross Creek that are open. So that's 20. And then our technical colleges, Atlantic, Sheridan, McFadder, all have a program as well. So that's 23 total.
Great. I see the number of schools have increased from the past. That's a good sign. Second question I have is, you have data that you can give us as far as by disability, the number of students that are enrolled in ESY?
Sure, I don't have it on me, but it's something I can definitely pull from our database, and I can definitely email it to Ms. Thomerson to give to the group, or I can give it to Dr. Hickman or Mrs. Clay, and they can bring it to the next meeting.
The reason I say that is the past, there has been criticism of the district by parents that certain children with certain disabilities were not given ESY, that certain students that had profound disabilities or intellectually deficient problems were given ESY. And that's gone over the years as one of the problem situations in determining which students are eligible for ESY. I just wanted to confirm whether that practice has changed from the past for the present now, where ESY is provided for our kids.
Perfect, and I won't sit here and try to justify that. The data will speak, so I will get that information, like I said, to Dr. Hickman or Mrs. Clay, and they can bring it to the next meeting, or we can email it to Mrs. Thomerson. Okay, thank you, Ed. Becky, yes, ma'am.
Hi. I have to say I do see a big difference now, and there are a lot more students that are attending ESY now without that struggle. But I do have to say that I'm seeing a lot of schools that are using the data about the regression piece as to whether or not the student has regressed during spring break or winter break to decide whether or not they're going to. And summer, summer break is much longer than a winter break or a spring break. But I'm seeing that seems to be like the thing that the committee is using as a determination as to whether or not they're going to regress during the summer.
Well, it is an individualized program, so if those needs are something that is a concern, it's definitely something that we can look into. But as of now, it's not something that has been brought to our attention as being a real, huge issue within the district. But, I would never say, it's not something that could be a possibility in the future.
I was hoping to have this information prior to the meeting, but I was back and forth with some people in Palm Beach, because I know that there's a group there advocating for better programming for students with reading over the summer, and train teachers teaching those students over the summer, since those are the ones in most critical need. So I just received today The manual that Palm Beach has, it's like over 150 pages, I think, of their, I don't know what you guys have. I mean, I'm new to this, but I know that they're offering Wilson reading over the summer for kids. I was at the autism meeting last week, and they were talking about, the programs that are needed to, what programming are we offering in Broward?
Well, remember, ESY, or Extended School Year, is one of the many programs that we offer in our summer programs. That's why I referenced the splash page in the website. I know that for third graders, there is it used to be called Reading Camp, and they've rebranded it. I'm not 100% sure what the title of it is, but that opportunity is there for third graders. But when it comes to all students, that's a great question. I don't have that answer, but it's something that we can definitely write down and look into, and definitely bring to Mr. Gold's attention to see if there's something, or there's a way to expand the summer program process.
I know from my personal experience, because I was anticipating questions that people might have. So when I went through my son's IEP process, I was thinking about those things. So almost like planting seeds to find out how the process works, so I could help people navigate. And my son's IEP meeting was in December, and when we discussed ESY was brought up, which, usually it's not even, it's just always turned down right away. Like, you don't want that. And I used to be a teacher, and I know I sat in those meetings where we would say, you basically just got the word that we're not going to offer, it's pretty much not going to happen. So I was aware on my IEP, it said a decision would be made by April 1st. And then I just looked back, because I had an RTI meeting for my other son. I looked back and I was like, oh, April 1st has come and gone. I didn't hear anything. So help me understand, or help us understand what that should look like. You said that you're looking at spring break, or regression over winter break, or spring break. So if you're in an IEP meeting in December and it says, well, we'll look at this later, then what is the protocol supposed to be at that point?
Well, all these ESY decisions are supposed to be made by April 1st, and we actually pull that data regularly because we want to make sure that schools aren't waiting for the last minute, because it does become impossible.
So what
for
is that
schools to have
data? What deems a student?
No, I'm just talking about ESY determinations.
Right.
I don't pull data on who's eligible and who's not,
Right.
but we definitely do track the number of students as April comes forward that have not had ESY decisions that are made. And, Ms. Stark's office does a fantastic job of making sure that we are on top of schools to make sure those ESC specialists know that those decisions have to be made prior to April 1st. Now, mind you, there's always exceptions to the rule. If we have new students that are made eligible, or pre-K students that are made eligible, or a student moves into the district, or there are extenuating circumstances and we have to make a kid eligible, we always do that up until ESY starts, or even we accept kids once the program started. So, but as far as decisions not being made, that is, definitely news to me. I think this year, better than any, we've actually had programs for our ESE specialists that just focused on ESY. I think that was I'm going to call it a PLC, but Felicia actually has a term for it. What did you call those?
High learning. And I'm loud, right?
No.
Because of this phone.
I'm so glad you said I'm not loud. My family says I'm so loud. The ESY decision, the April deadline is really a Broward deadline to help us plan and get classes set up. And it's for us to be able to make sure that we have the right staff hired, whatever. It is not a deadline under IDEA or a requirement under the state. The requirement is that annually there's a decision made prior to ESY. So if by some chance you have not had an ESY decision, it shouldn't be your responsibility. Certainly one can reach out to your ESE specialist, but I will ask my staff to do another poll on that and make sure that they've let people know. There's sometimes reasons why, if your IEP's due in May, they're not going to make the decision on the old IEP. They may be waiting for that. So if it's a handful, that's not going to turn into an issue. So that's really, sometimes there's extenuating circumstances why it's going to go beyond that April 1st deadline. But as many as we can catch by April 1st, that allows Brian and his team to make sure that they have the right staffing and the right people, not just the right staffing. Like you mentioned, you got to have the right people hired.
So speaking of the hiring,
What is the criteria for hiring?
Well, any teacher is eligible to
Anyone.
apply to work summer programs. And then just like for any teacher, it goes by their bargaining unit date. So let's say 100 teachers applied for ESY, then basically it goes by tenure. And there's, in union contract, there's the top 20% by seniority that we have to pick up or schools have to pick up. And then after that, it goes basically by school need. Because if we have ASD clusters that we have to hire for, obviously it goes by the certification and those type of things that they have. But
Special education teachers.
Correct.
They have to be certified, and then, in certain circumstances, if we have a specific reason why we need someone with a specific skill set, then that might be a reason why that person gets picked up over someone with more seniority. So if we have a specialized program that we need an individual that can teach that, then they might be hired as well.
like our hospital homebound teachers, our DHH cluster teachers, you know, a lot of them don't have the tenure, but they have the specialized skills and certifications to serve those students.
So first, I'd like to applaud you for the increase. I think it's phenomenal what you've done in the couple.
Well, I don't take any of the
Or
credit.
your group.
It's definitely
Your group.
for, well, thank you. It's
It really
definitely from
is.
the training Felicia, you know, but thank you.
It's an amazing, thank you from all of us parents who need ESY. My question is reading. Do you know what programs, or was that what you were telling Kelly, you didn't know what programs we were using for
We don't-
children behind?
We don't script or we don't recommend programs because it's based on the student's IEP. So if there's a specific program that's placed in the IEP, which, you know, we really hope that schools aren't doing that,
Yeah, they
then
won't
we
let
would
us
have
do
to
that.
provide it. But that's why the schools are crucial in making sure when they make the students eligible, they advise us on what programs or what they're using at the school. And then that's what we utilize in the summer months to assist those students.
So this has been a topic this year, very much so, is the programs utilized for reading. And they don't put a program in, but we do know that there are programs that we're using that the children are not progressing. So if a child has a program through the year and he's not progressing, would he be getting that same program in ESY?
It would depend on what the school is advising us on what we need to educate the student with. So we don't have a set curriculum because it would be very difficult to have certain skills on IEPs and then just have one, I guess, all for one type of curriculum that we offer because it may not meet those specific goals that those students need. It's definitely something that we can research and look into, and I'm interested to look into see what Palm Beach is doing because I'm not familiar with the manual that they have. I know we have a summer programs manual, but you know, I'm definitely interested, and maybe you can even give me the name of the person who, you know, you're collaborating with because I would love to see what they're doing. But it's definitely something we can look into. But I just get fearful when we start to say, you know, we're going to do program X because, as we know, not all programs are beneficial for all students.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to, you know, then invest money or, you know, advise my bosses to buy something that, you know, would go by the
I
wayside.
understand, but
So-
I would think that if the program is proven to be working, that the child, I hope, is getting it over the summer.
Absolutely.
And if it's not proven to working, that maybe the child that we looked at, they're getting something else
That's a great
to
point.
help them catch
Well, I
up.
mean, we would hope, right, we would hope that if it's not working, that would be a
Trigger to hold an IEP meeting and to look at what isn't working and what we would need to do to make it work. So that would be the first trigger. But if there's a circumstance where they're not making, if your child is not making progress on the current program, then I would highly recommend you ask for that interim IEP to talk about how your student's progressing or not progressing. We do train the staff that if there are 2 marking periods where a student is not making the progress that you anticipate, that triggers the need to hold an interim IEP. So maybe if it's the first, 9 weeks and they're not making the progress we anticipated, that might not be quite enough time. But if that happens the second time, you should definitely be holding that interim IEP. So that's their guideline, but that doesn't stop you as a parent from requesting it sooner than that.
I just had like a light bulb go off my head. And what you said about the April 1st that came and went, that's happened to a couple of my clients. And if you have like an IEP or annual in January, parents are going to think, I don't have to worry about that for another year. And a lot of them aren't educated enough to realize, oh, if I haven't had those conversations with the ESE department and then my students' teachers, and this is come and gone, I missed the boat. So what my light bulb was at the end of your IEP meetings, when you give them the sign that they got the procedural safeguards and the Senate bill, all that other stuff. Is there any way maybe you can also give parents some type of thing like what you just said, about the ESY, what the date is, that type of thing, so parents might be able to put on their calendar, due diligence and call by the first if they haven't heard anything, or a couple weeks before, but just to let the parents know that, hey, this is coming up. So if you haven't heard from your ESE specialist, maybe you can make that phone call and say, are you considering my child, or just to give them knowledge, just a suggestion.
It's good to, it's suggestion. I think that maybe at that time it might get lost, but maybe what we could do is a parent link that went out, maybe a month before, to just remind them that if they did not have an ESY decision, just to let people know, just an idea, it's like a way, because I know I've been doing this a while, but I can't tell you how many parents would tell me, don't give me another copy of the procedural safeguard, I can wallpaper my whole house. I don't, so giving another piece of paper might not be the best way, but maybe a parent link just to say, hey, just a reminder, if you had your IEP meeting and you didn't have that ESY determination, but our staff needs to be, everybody's human, errors happen, but they need to be on top of that. So we'll remind them, we do remind them, but we can certainly do a full and try to catch some more as well. We do that regularly, but with 30,000 students, that's a lot of students. I'm not making excuses, but it does fall on the schools to monitor that. And as our partner, we always, I can tell you myself, if I get a parent helping me be on top of things, I'm never upset by that. So I don't think people should be upset by a reminder of, hey, I didn't have an ESY determination, and I would love to have that determination.
As I was listening to your presentation, you kept mentioning that it's an IEP decision whether or not a child goes to IEP, and the parent is definitely a part of that. Well, in my experience, it has just been a bumpy road, one where, so my question would be to you, that if the team is the one that's supposed to decide if the child goes to ESY, and they're presenting their data, but you're the savvy parent and you're also presenting your data, that the data that they show isn't the data that you have. So how do you come to that common ground?
That's a good question, but I don't know what data the school would provide that you wouldn't already be in the loop about. I would hope that there would be continuous, not only information that comes home, but with our IEP goals, progress reports. There's a lot of monitoring pieces that go on along the length of a school year where, I would hope that the two parties are at least on the same page with that. But that's the first I've heard where there's that type of conflict, where there's a parent that is on one way saying, we need it, and a school's on the total other end that says the student doesn't need it. Because my experience is, when they're at that, kind of a stalemate, that I would pretty much say that schools usually, if the need is there, they always, fall on the side of the kid and make the student eligible. I can't speak to individual circumstances because obviously I wasn't in those meetings, but if that happens, I would think to give our office a call, because we would definitely want to, have a conversation to see exactly what was going on. Obviously, we're not a part of the IEP team, but if there's that much discrepancy at the meeting, that would just be something that would be very alarming to me, because as a parent myself, as I'm sure, if you guys are here, I know you're involved, but I would think that, for the most part, we're going to know if our kids are doing well or struggling. And if the struggle's there, I think the decision would be pretty evident. But, that's just me assuming, which doesn't always, mean that I'm right.
Hi, Brian.
Hi, Donna. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Very good.
Thank you. So let me share my experience, just to piggyback on Ms. Old. My son was just made eligible this year, and as soon as we had the first eligibility meeting, I actually brought up ESY, and I was told, oh, no. Okay, so I left it be, and actually I didn't realize the April 1st deadline. We actually just had an interim because I felt that he was not meeting his goals, and I was really in tune to what was going on. So they did honor the interim.
And it was never even mentioned. And that was just about a week ago. Again, wasn't aware of this April deadline. And so now I'm questioning, like, why wouldn't they even mention about ESY?
Well, I'm not sure, I don't know the specifics, Donna, because I don't know when your,
Well, my annual is coming up,
okay.
you see, so I still have my annual, but again, it's past the deadline, so to speak, although okay, so there's not really a hard deadline.
Felicia did a really good job of explaining it because it's really my deadline.
Okay.
Because when it comes to summer programs, number one, as Felicia said, we have to budget for staff. And that's not only teachers, that's paraprofessionals, behavior techs, autism coaches. So we need to make sure that we have the people to make sure we can cover all the sites and all the unique needs of our students. So it's no different than projecting for a school year, like a school would budget or project the number of students they had, with the hope that they have enough staff to start the school year. Well, that's how we do ESY. And we also are very aware that I would say approximately 10% of the kids don't show because they make those determinations in April. When the program starts in June, parents may move, they may make different plans for the summer. So we have a 10%, give where we probably have the students that just don't ever show. But like, Felicia made a great point to say it's our deadline. It's not a legal deadline.
Right.
And as I said, we accept students all the way up until the start of ESY and sometimes even once the program started.
Okay, and let me just share too, because I already have plans to pay a lot of money for private tutoring this summer, and it's very frustrating, to have to hire a tutor for the summer where, the option was not offered. I of course can mention it. And I think too, and I don't know if this is, maybe I'm kind of speculating as to why they didn't mention it or they kind of blew it to the side. I mean, I think with my son's disability, he's SLD pretty much, there's, like you mentioned, the other groups that have, that go into ESY, the homebound kids and the other kids. Would the services that he got in ESY, would they benefit him, or would he be with students that, would he receive this? You know what I'm trying to say? Like, would he be students?
To make an analogy that you would understand back when we were at high school together.
Yeah.
It's more of like a learning strategies class. So they would be in there with students that may have, a similar deficit disability. It may not be in reading. It may not be in math. It may be in both. It may be in something else.
EBD,
but it would be
like behavioral versus
It could be.
learning?
It depends.
Okay, so
It totally
different
varies. But, they are placed in a class with about 10 to 12 other students. Now, it's not tutoring. You know what I mean? It's not like you can go in there and say, this is what I want my son to learn. The school then would provide the information that they feel like your son would need based on his IEP goals, to say this is what he needs to work on over the summer months. So, that's something too that I get into a lot of, parents get confused because a lot of times people use the word summer school and they reflect back to summer school where they're making up credits and those type of things. And that's not, what ESY is for. It's basically just to make sure that regression recoupment doesn't happen, or to try to prevent it as much as possible. So there's a lot of, I think there's a big understanding that we have to make sure we do to all parents, because a lot of times that's what they want. They want credit recovery, or their students are short credits and they think that ESY is summer school and they can have that option. But, I would definitely ask, I don't know what school your son is at. I don't want you to say it publicly, but, definitely bring it up to the school when you have that annual, because those decisions still can be made. And if you have any, issues, you can definitely reach out to Felicia or myself.
It's not just regression and recoupment. I just want to make sure there are more questions than just that. If it's a critical life skill,
Correct.
if it's behaviors that might be an issue. So there are more questions. There are 4 that are currently on, but the state is changing that. I believe they're adding 2 more, so there will be 6 questions in total. Okay, we're gonna wrap that up.
Hi Felicia, how are you? I have a client who I recently attended a meeting, and the ESY data was kind of sitting on the borderline. So we determined that we were going to look at ESY a little bit further down the road. But the ESE specialist marked it on the IEP as no, is not eligible for ESY. Even though I said, can you please put down, we're going to be meeting at a later date. And I understand your deadlines, but I was not really comfortable with that, because again, if the child moves, the IEP is marked, no, is not eligible for ESY, and that to me is an issue. So I don't know how you want to how that can be handled, but I didn't feel it was my place to tell the ESE specialist, yes, you have to do this.
Well, actually, maybe not quite like that, but it certainly as an advocate is an acceptable thing to say. I'm not okay with that. And I have to tell you,
that that's your job. I mean, if you're there advocating, I'm not saying this towards you like in a negative way, but you're there to be that extra set of eyes with the parent. And if you're there, because the fact is, if you mark it no, it's not going to come up in our polls. The reason why those selections are there is so that we can help monitor the data so that if it's been delayed, if it gets marked as no, it's not one that's going to come up on our radar because we're not, it was a no decision and the committee has the right to make that decision. Yes, no, decide later. Those are the decisions. So I just want to encourage you that if it's a decision you're going to revisit, then I would definitely say it. I mean, you need to encourage them to mark it as will be determined at a later date. But I like that kind of feedback because those are reminders I can give to ESE specialists. If you look at an IEP, what you all do, there are so many decisions and pieces to getting that final document, and there's a lot of clicking and moving and writing and developing, and it's a very intensive process. And I would bet you couldn't pick up an IEP anywhere in this country that doesn't have an error or something because of the number of decisions and things that are there. So I don't think you're doing anything but doing your job to be mom or advocate to say, you know what, if we're not making the decision now, the decision's based on data. If we don't have the data, then it is to be determined at a later date. We put the April 1st there, like we said, as a guideline, but we want the decisions made for kids because that's part of their free appropriate public education. And if they need extended school year, we need to offer that. So I hope that I just want to encourage you that if you're not making the determination, you should put April 1st because that allows us to track that.
I have to put on my chair hat right now and advocating for all these students. And I have to tell you that I would be remiss not to say that it is definitely my impression, has been when I was teaching, is my impression as a parent sitting in the meetings that ESY is pretty much not offered to kids that are higher functioning or, because even if they would benefit and I'm using my son as the example, but a student with dyslexia who has made some tremendous progress because of the, intensive interventions he's getting daily. Well, clearly kids are going to regress and have the summer slide, everybody will. But, some of the kids who maybe just got an IEP in the spring, they just got eligible, they just started services, now they're going to go and they're going to miss their, we have to do something. So I know in Palm Beach, it was a new thing. This was like a lot of parents advocating and teachers advocating and saying, we have to offer the same, if it's summer, it needs to be even more intensive. If we want to make up some gains here, I just think that that's something the district needs to start taking more seriously.
And my retort would be, we have, and I think, Felicia would agree with this as well. I think last year we started and our ESE specialist did start to open it up to all. And I actually said at some point that it used to be in one of my slides, your kid isn't eligible for ESY because they don't fit the program, but we've done our best to get that word out there to ESE specialists, and we have more VE in the really elementary school and also learning strategies in the secondary, which we never used to offer 3 years ago, where those gen ed kids who are going for a regular diploma and are on that graduation track, they are eligible to go. And to Ivan's point, the data will show it, but I guarantee you that we have, last time I looked, it was well into the 600s of SLD students who were made eligible for ESY this year. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've had a significant jump in the numbers over the last couple of years. So we're definitely not perfect. And like Felicia said, we do a great job trying to advocate for our kids and educate our ESE specialists, but we're not in every IEP meeting. We don't know what those conversations are. We don't know if there's conflict there, but we can only strive to get better. And I think over the years it has improved, and I'm optimistic that it will be better even this year.
Yay. That sounds good. So thank you.
My only request is if I can come next year and present, I would love to do it earlier rather than later.
Yes.
So maybe like right after winter break, like that February meeting, because I think it's important information. And if I could have gotten this information out to you guys, and I can only go by when I'm invited, but if I can do it in January or February, that way we still have my, paper April 1st deadline, but there is a reason for that, and I hope you guys understand the planning that goes into that. But I think that would be a great benefit to all, because I would definitely like to do that. So
That's great.
thank you so much for having me, and I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thanks, Peyton. Good luck tomorrow.
I think Brian took my time already, so, which is good. My name is Felicia Stark, and I am barely taller than this podium, so I hope y'all can see me. My role with the district is my title is due process coordinator, but I handle all things compliance. So I have roles other than just due process. I love getting the feedback like what we just got, because as hard as it is to have our ESE specialists get all the training that they need, the feedback allows me to help them help you. And the fact is, the more conflict we have, the busier I am, and we want my office to be not busy and you all to be happy. So that's the goal. I'm going to go over, last year I presented on changes that were done to SP&P. It's got a big title, Exceptional Student Education Policies and Procedures. It's School Board Policy 6000.4, and it is a document that is the framework for the federal legislation, the IDEA, all of our Florida statutes and State Board of Education rules, and then any specific local input that we have to have. All of that is saying that this is a working document that encompasses all of those legal requirements that are in there. So the next slide. There were some rule revisions that were done in 2014, and we did revise SP&P last year, and then they went into place, and then they didn't change them in SP&P. They were behind in the process from the state. So when we get SP&P, it is not primarily written by Broward. It's primarily written by the Department of Education. There are only certain sections where Broward has to give input. And so they made these legislative changes, and they didn't keep up with it in SP&P. So while we went through the whole process last year, they had to still do more revisions to get all of the rules that had been written into the document. So what they did was, and you can see this, the second part there is, they added to the signature page. So when it goes through the school board meetings and gets approved, the superintendent signs it, and that's him saying as the LEA for all of Broward County that we're going to adhere to everything that's in here. And they put like a little disclaimer that says the school district shall implement any amendments to rules and statutes referenced in this document to become effective within the school year. So you notice that what that says is the 15-16 school year, and we're coming to the end of that. So you might be thinking to yourself, why are we talking about this when this is over or the school year is coming to a close? That's the way the process works. They open it up for us at a certain time in the year, and then we give the input, and DOE had a lot of turnover of staff this year. And so we didn't get it back from them until April, and then we had to start the process. Actually, I think we got back in March. So it just takes a little bit to get it on the school board. So that's what it is. But then it's in effect until a new one is adopted. So even though it says the 15-16 school year, it's in effect until we would adopt a new policy. Okay, so this is a lot of boxes showing the approval process. And basically, it's just a summary to show that we do get told usually in August from the state what the changes are going to be and what the required parts are from the district. And then they give us a period of time to do that input. It's usually about 3 weeks. We do our input, and then it goes in for them to review it. All this is done now electronically. We have a general supervision website, and we actually enter it into a database that's maintained by the Department of Education, and only the boxes that they want our input in. When they approve it, if they approve it right away, then we can start on the process. They usually come back with some feedback of language that they want changed. And then once they approve it, then we can say, oh, but wait, we want to change information in these boxes. Can you open them up? And so it goes back and forth. Once we get an approved document, which I'll talk about in a second, then we have to take it through the school board process, and that's what we're doing now.
And part of that process is we bring it here to make sure ESE advisory is aware of what those changes are. So we're going to talk about the changes. Okay, as I mentioned, it is a web-based document. It is posted on a secure website, and it is manned and owned by the Department of Education. And I'm short and tipping this. So it is then approved by the Department of Ed, and then it goes through a process, and we then create it into a document. If you go online, you'll see it. It's a thick, about 200 and some pages long, so it's a very full document. Okay. These were the areas that had changes in this version of SPMP. Last year, there were tons of changes, and I think I had to present for about 45 minutes on all of the changes. So there were 8 new text boxes added under legal requirements. There was 1 new text box that was added under the procedural safeguards. There was 1 question and 5 text box added under the general education interventions, and then text box in the initiating and evaluation and the IEP plan. When you go and look in SPMP, all of these sections had no changes. So there were no changes to the majority of the sections. Okay, so then I'm going to go through what the changes are so that you're aware. And the first section that there are changes is the legal requirements section. And in this section, they added some text boxes. They were wanting districts to track their restraints and seclusions and give a plan for how those restraints and seclusions would be reduced. So they're looking for a monitoring plan internal to the district and how it's going to be reduced. And this was one of the things that kind of has delayed, had a short little delay in our process because we have a new executive director, Dr. Hickman, and we are no longer going to allow the use of seclusion rooms going forward. So those have been, and I think Dr. Hickman wanted to say something.
Save your applause. No, just a moment. Let me just read